Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I'm very excited to be bringing you my first impressions for Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Now I have to start out by giving a big thank you to Ubisoft for the early review copy of this game, and there are two main things that I want to clarify before we get into anything. This video is truly going to be a first impressions, right? There will be no major story spoilers. All of the footage and basic concepts that I'm talking about are from the first 2, maybe 3 hours of the game, so this is truly all stuff that you would have seen in the trailers or other marketing like that. Secondly, everything captured in this video is from an Xbox Series X. That is the perspective I will be speaking from, so just keep that in mind. And the only thing I really wanted to kind of elaborate on before we fully dive in is the kind of viewpoint that I'm heading into with this game. I was not so interested in Avatar because I'm a kind of super fan of the movies. I don't have a particular affinity for these types of games. However, I'm a massive Tom Clancy's The Division fan. That is what my channel is based around if you didn't see. And for anyone who didn't know, this is the same development studio that has now made Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. And in fact, it is their first AAA game that has not been a Division title in over a decade, I believe. So I was very intrigued to see their latest game. I also like the idea of supporting a studio that I care for. And particularly, I was quite interested in analyzing the kind of tech and engine side of things here, as it does, somewhat pertain to what we might see in The Division 3, which is a game that Massive has since confirmed to be working on. So, all of that said, what did I think of Avatar in these first hours of gameplay? It's pretty damn fun. It's not perfect, and we'll get to what I didn't like as much, but let's start with the positive. Much like the films, and I think if you listen to reviews around the internet, you're gonna hear this commonality, the greatest standout for me in this game is the world and the special effects. And one moment that was super memorable was the tutorial for the game is all gray. You start out in these indoor locations, but there's a moment where you finally get to emerge out into Pandora, and it sounds corny to say, but I got chills. The visuals, the density of vegetation, the soundscape that all just erupts at once is truly breathtaking. And it shouldn't come as a big surprise. Massive closely collaborated with Lightstorm to produce this game. That is the company that is in charge of the Avatar franchise, and they handle the films. And from what I heard, every asset that is in this game had to be individually signed off on by Lightstorm, which sounds like it might have been tedious, but the end result was worth it. This is a synonymous world to the film world, and they make a point to say that the game is 100% canonical. Characters like Jake Sully from the films are referenced in here. But beyond just the world and the world building, the traversal across the world feels fluid and effortless. Running across these plains, sliding down slopes, jumping across these big vines, vaulting over things, climbing, scaling, it all just feels right. Between the animations and the mechanics, you just interact with the world in such an organic way. But the interactivity also goes in both ways. Pandora can look gorgeous, but it's also quite deadly. Different plants will react to your presence differently. Some have these like defense mechanisms. And if you stray too far into the wilderness, you'll encounter wildlife that might run, it might interact with you, or it might attack you. And so between all of those things, the world just feels so incredibly alive and fun to explore. And it's also very reactive. Obviously, a big part of the game is tackling the RDA, the human enemy force that is present on Pandora. And as they go around establishing these mining colonies, the world physically transforms in front of your eyes. And as you approach where their operations are, you'll see the lush green and dense jungles turn from that vibrant color to this very gray and very dead feeling. So the world itself is just super cool, super interactive, and it is easily my biggest highlight from these first few hours of gameplay. Some other more random one-off things that I wanted to point out. The sense and scale of power in this game is really awesome. The Na'vi are of course a very tall race, and you feel that in combat. You can go up and one-hit punch the human enemies, and you feel it in any of the human architecture that you interact with. Sometimes you'll have to crouch down to get through what should be regular-sized doorways for us, and they just conveyed the differentials there really well. Another point, the user interface is very minimal. It's very clean and effective. Games can often feel cluttered on the screen, but Avatar makes a point to let the world and the environment around you really be the centerpiece, and then you have a very minor compass at the top, and you have other menus that you can pull up, but the way that they pulled that off was really well done. And the harvesting system is really neat. It is something that other people have talked about in their reviews, but it's just another very cool point of interactivity where different plants will become more potent under different conditions. So let's say when it's raining outside versus when it's not. And depending on if those conditions are met and if you harvest the plant in the correct way, there's a little mini game where you have to pull down your stick and press the right trigger. All of those factors will contribute to whether or not your yield is for better or worse. And that was just a very cool way to do it, and it definitely makes you want to interact with it in a way that's not so mindless, which is how many other games would handle it. I also wanted to mention that I haven't even unlocked flying yet, which looks to be a major component of this game and one that feels really good to do. So I'm excited to get that down the line. That's a lot of what I liked about the game, but let's also talk about what didn't impress me as much, again in my limited playtime, and that was the performance, unfortunately. Once again, I'm running this all on an Xbox Series X, I can't speak for the PC performance, and I want to be clear that I'm not expecting PC level performance. But at the same time, Avatar is a next-gen exclusive game. You cannot buy or play this on an Xbox One or a PS4. And so when making that leap, I do expect that to mean fully utilizing next-gen capabilities. Despite that, you have two video modes. One is a quality mode, which does lock it to a very rough 30 FPS, which yes, it does make the world look better, but I really just was unable to play in that frame rate for a first-person, like, fast-paced game like this. They then do have a performance mode, which gives you 60 FPS, and it doesn't list the specs, but it really just, in my opinion and my gameplay, really detracted from the beauty of the world. And I thought that was an incredible shame. In particular, like high up foliage and the skybox looked incredibly pixelated. And again, that doesn't detract from the moment-to-moment gameplay, but I just found it to be quite unfortunate for a game that focuses so much on the breathtaking nature of this world, for it to detract that much from it on these next-gen hardware and platforms. Again, just unfortunate. And I think it's a shame that Tom Clancy's The Division 2, the studio's last game, which came out in 2019, has a higher fidelity and runs better at 4K 60 FPS than this brand new next-gen exclusive title. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact, and I do just want to point out that I'm aware that graphics are not down to a single entity like that, right? There's other considerations when it comes to the overall performance of a game. And no doubt, Avatar is pumping a lot of technology to make this world feel the way that it does. Stuff like all of the AI and interaction of these plants and wildlife. I've heard there's ray traced audio in there. The audio does feel super good. But regardless, again, it is a next-gen exclusive title, and because of that, I was a bit disappointed with the overall performance mode and look of the game. I did also experience a few performance hiccups, a few stutters, and at one point I did freeze for like a good 2 seconds maybe. That was not regular and it was not a game breaker, but I did just want to point that out. But all in all, those are my thoughts on Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Stunning world, visually and interactively. Fluid and fun gameplay. The performance and fidelity aren't what I had hoped, but they're not deal breakers for me. And one last thing I wanted to note on, I was previously bummed out that this game would not be in third person, and I know I've read that from other people too. And while I'm not saying that that still would not have been cool to see, after playing, I get the vision. The immersion that you feel while sprinting across these tree roots, jumping, climbing, it is really awe-inspiring, so I will eat my words there. First person does feel pretty awesome, and if that was something that was detracting you from wanting to try the experience, give it a shot if you're able to. But those are my thoughts and first impressions on Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Let me know whatever you're thinking, your thoughts on the game, your reactions to what I talked about in this video, and let me know if this is a game that you plan on picking up or not. Regardless, thanks so much for checking this out, I appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one. RogueGold. Out.